to you. Thank you. Now, another big story today. The Obama administration cracking down further on banking executives of firms still owing taxpayers big bucks from the bailouts. Now, pay czar Kenneth Feinberg wants top employees to take much of their pay in stock, and they cannot cash in those shares for several years. So if the company doesn't do well, neither will the executives.
But our next guest says those rules might hurt the American people because it will damage the companies we are most invested in. Republican Representative Marsha Blackburn joining us from Tennessee. Welcome, Representative. Thank you for being here.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, this is a common argument we've heard, that if we start cutting back on people's pay, then that'll hurt the incentives and people won't work as hard for the companies in which we own so much. Tell me really a bit deeper what worries you most about this.
There are a couple of things that are very troublesome in this process. Number one, what we see is the federal government reaching its hand into the executive's pocket, getting in there, determining what those contracts are going to be, changing those contracts, changing those pay structures. And quite frankly, when you look at companies that are out there right now that took TARP funds, we want the best management possible at those companies so that the American taxpayer gets their money back. Secondly, we have a czar who is not responsible to Congress, not responsible to the American people. He's appointed by the Treasury Secretary. So this is of concern to us, that he is outside of that oversight jurisdiction. It should be of concern to everyone.
You know, Congresswoman, it's worth noting that the 7 companies he's looking at, they took about $700 billion in bailout money and backstops. But the real question for Congress is, will you be calling any the pay czar and any other czar in for hearings? They haven't gone through confirmation hearings. Will you be calling Kenneth Feinberg in for a hearing to discuss his moves?
We would like to call those czars in. We think that transparency and accountability on the czar issue is imperative. My resolution, H.R. 185, would it requests the White House to give us a full accounting of the czars, how they have been vetted, and report on their background, and then for the House to hold hearings on these.
All right,
the fact that these actions are taking place and they are outside of the jurisdiction of the administration or of Congress, the fact that many times the czars are acting with the authority of the cabinet secretary but not coming to Congress, that does concern us.
Representative, I had a chance to speak with Bill George. He used to head Medtronic, and he took the company from $1 billion to $60 billion when he was running it over a decade, and he sits on the compensation committees of ExxonMobil and Goldman Sachs, and he believes that absolutely these guys have got to have their compensation tied to long-term gain, and it has to be a pay-for-performance situation and not just willy-nilly throw out bonuses. He's talking about companies that no longer really have a big stake in the government, but these companies, I mean, that's just, you know, the cherry on top. When you look at these companies where, my goodness, they have all this taxpayer money, must they not be held accountable in some way, shape, or form?
Well, and you're exactly right. They should be held accountable. What is of concern to us is that this is being done by the federal government, by someone, a czar, who is outside of the jurisdiction of Congress. It is not being done by the board of that company. If it were being done by the board and by the shareholders, then you wouldn't have a problem with it. What we would like to see is that chain of accountability and responsibility. Look, as we continue to see this pattern of action by the administration, it appears to us that it is indicative of an administration that just does not have a healthy suspicion of government. And I think the American people have that healthy suspicion.
All right, Congresswoman Blackburn, we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much for your